Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, Med Cinema. My name is Jake. This is Tim. Today we're going to be discussing Dune, the movie, not the book, 2021. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk about Dune 2,
Yep.
2024.
All
But
right.
be advised, there will be spoilers in this first part about Dune 1. Dune 2, we will not have any spoilers.
All right. So Dune, the first movie, this is uh number one. It's a remake of the I think 1984 Dune, and that
Yes.
is based off the 1965 book by Frank Herbert. I feel like we should give them a little bit of credit where credit is due there. It tells the story of House Atreides, who is a sort of royal family that is tasked with taking over another planet from another one of the royal families. And this there's already strife between these two families, but this kind of just wedges a rift even worse in between the two. It's also a coming of age story for young Paul Atreides, who is supposed to be 15 years old. I don't know how old Timothy Chalamet is, but kind of the story about how he is learning to be a royal presence on this new planet, to where they're learning everything brand new. They have to learn everything about the culture, the Fremen people that live on this planet already, as well as how to remain safe. Water is a big thing in this movie about maintaining your water and not losing it to the heat of the sun, because this is a desert planet that they're going to called Dune. Also, I guess the real name is Arrakis, but the Fremen people call it Dune.
Yep. So, and the Fremen people are the locals that live on Dune. And this movie is a sci-fi adventure film. And you've read the books, Tim. So, as you know, I believe this came out before Star Wars, or Star Wars was inspired by it. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones as well. That's the vibe I got from it. I never read the books, but with all the different houses, and then fighting for a resource, kind of
Yeah, it's
seems.
there are so many similarities that George Lucas kind of borrowed from Dune. I read from an interview from Frank Herbert, the author, to where he said, "I'm going to do my best not to sue George Lucas when the first Star Wars movie came out, just because of the fact it's about a young man on a desert planet
Mhm.
that has to learn. We all know the story of Luke Skywalker. His uncle and aunt die, and then he has to go with this Jedi that trains him in these using special powers. It's the same sort of thing in this movie here. Paul Atreides, the movie starts off on their home planet of Calderan, I think the name of it is. And I'm going to try and to keep this as 100% as possible about the movie. Yeah, we'll talk about the book, little tidbits maybe, but I'm trying to focus just on that. Um, but yeah, so the movie follows Paul Atreides and his family. They go from their home planet of Calderan, where there's always storms. It's luscious and green. They've got to go to the desert planet of Arrakis. And their family is tasked by the Emperor to manage the spice production. There's spice naturally on this planet. And at first, when I watched the movie, I was a little confused. I was like, are we talking about like paprika and,
Yeah.
cinnamon and cayenne? No, it's the spice is essentially the fuel that all of the spaceships use for traveling through space, interplanetary travel, right? So,
Yes. It's also
there,
a hallucinogen.
yes,
You can
yes. And one of the side effects of ingesting it, which I guess is impossible to do on this planet, is your eyes end up turning blue. So, there's always that. That's several people are like, why are their eyes blue? Well, that's the reason why is, because they're literally breathing and eating this spice, because there's no way to prevent it from landing in their soup or sandwiches or whatever.
and this
Um,
isn't Avatar, so their skin doesn't turn blue, alright? Just the eyeballs.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Which
yeah, no superpowers.
what's that?
No superpowers either. You just have a cool blue eyes.
Yeah.
That's about it.
You always
And then
wanted if you didn't want to be have brown eyes or green eyes, there you go. Um,
yeah.
but no, though the in this movie it stars it's got some veteran actors as well as some what I consider to be kind of newcomer actors here. Timothy Chalamet is the main role of Paul Atreides. His mother is played by a woman named Rebecca Ferguson, very pretty
Mhm.
lady. Um, let's see, we've got Oscar Isaac plays the Duke, which is Paul's father. Stellan Skarsgård. It's hard to say. I can tell you several movies that he's been in, but I mean, he's one of those guys that he's been in so many movies in large roles and smaller roles. What movies do you know Stellan Skarsgård from?
Yeah, he played Davy Jones, I think. It's the big one that I remember. Other than that, I'm looking at his film history right now. Yeah, that's really what I've recognized him
Mhm.
from. What about you?
So I mean, most recently he was in the Thor movies. He's one of the or physicists or whatever the science
Mhm.
person was in the first couple Thor movies. Um, I've seen him in Goodwill Hunting. I think he was in. Right, and it slips out of my head. The girl with the dragon tattoo.
It
He's
was.
one. He's one of the sons there. Um, so he's in it. Also, we've got Josh Brolin from No Country for Old Men, as well as his co-star counterpart from that movie, Javier Bardem.
Yep.
Um, then we've got some other lesser-known actors. I have to look them up here to kind of remember their names. Let's see who else. Who do we miss? Zendaya is in this movie.
Yeah, we got a lot of MCU people. Zendaya. If butchered that, it's my fault. She was in the Spider-Man movies, the modern MCU. Obviously, you said Josh Brolin, but he was Thanos. And then Oscar Isaac, he was in Star Wars and now Dune as well.
Hmm.
So I think he was a Moon Knight or something, one of the Marvel TV shows as well.
Yeah, on Disney Plus. Yeah.
And then Dave Bautista,
Hmm.
Guardians of the Galaxy, played, I think, Drax the Destroyer, if I'm not wrong.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
He played
so yeah,
Drax.
a lot of
Aquaman.
veteran, like, yeah, yeah. Jason Momoa,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a lot of superhero, Star Wars, Disney, Marvel type people are in this movie, and it makes sense. Other people were missing, I would say. Let's see. Ooh, Charlotte Rampling. I don't know from anything besides being the creepy witch in this movie. To be honest, not sure if you've seen her in anything else.
No, I think she's one of those older actresses, actor. I don't know what you want to call it. Kind of like Helen Mirren, to where she was in a lot of movies back in the '70s. She plays the Reverend Mother in this movie of the Bene Gesserit, which is kind of its own religion, to where they dictate what gender of child the different houses are allowed to have. That way they can manipulate, so to speak, sort of the bloodlines. And
Mhm.
that's where the movie really opens at, is they're wanting to test Paul because his mother was told to bear a child that's a female. And of course, she had a male. She went against the Bene Gesserit training. So the beginning of the movie, they have him stick his hand into this box, and they hold the Jam Gabar, which is a poison needle, up against his neck, and basically it's a test. And I don't know that they fully explain the test in the movie. The reasoning for it in the book, it is to make sure that he is truly human. Um, and again, having only read the first book one time, I still don't know that I fully understand it. I just know, it's a something that is shown, and people immediately that have read the book, or they know what it is. Um,
So I thought it was more just based on watching the movie, not knowing any of the really from the books or anything like that. I thought it was just like seeing if you could bear the pain because you weren't supposed to make some type of sound. So I thought it was a test of perseverance. That's
mhm.
what I got from it. But I didn't know it was to make sure you're fully human.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think they fully explain that in the movie, and obviously for runtime reasons, there was a lot of stuff they just kind of had to glaze over in this movie, which
Yeah,
is fine. It's a shortened version of the book, but yeah. So there that is. Um,
yeah.
they go to Arrakis, and
Mhm.
immediately they just have to start taking over what is left for them. They have malfunctioning equipment that they feel like they've been sabotaged. There's an assassination attempt on Paul, um, with what
Yeah, we
they.
should probably explain why the Emperor gave Arrakis to House Atreides over the Harkonnens, who had this planet for their own harvesting for what 80 something, maybe a century or
Yeah,
something like
I think it
that.
was for 80 years the Harkonnens had control over Arrakis.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Emperor says no. They want House Atreides to take over. Basically, the Duke, Oscar Isaac, is very charismatic and has a lot of influence to the other houses. So it's a very much the Emperor's jealous and wants House Atreides to fall, but can't deliberately do it without causing a war. Did we expand on that or not really? I don't remember.
Not so much. And again, I feel like the movie did not do a fantastic job of even explaining that point.
Yeah,
Um,
you gotta read the book. That's what Tim's telling us, basically.
so yeah, so I mean, basically, it's a jealousy play. So he sends them there, knowing that they've already got this strife with the Harkonnens, and that the Harkonnens are going to retaliate. And ultimately, what happens that's exactly what happens is the Harkonnens, and of course, like we said, there's spoilers in this video. There won't be when we cover Dune 2 because it's so new at the theaters at this point in time. But yeah, the Harkonnens, they even take some of the Emperor's soldiers, the Sardaukar, and take them with them, and they disguise the Sardaukar as Harkonnens, so that basically they want to wipe out this entire bloodline and have the planet back. And the reasoning for it is because it is so profitable, whoever controls the spice production, not just because it's going to the Space Guild and used for travel, but because they're also selling it on the side, which again, I don't think the movie covers that, but that's one of the main reasons they went back in there is because they've got like a little side hustle to where they're you know working with people that shouldn't be getting spice and selling them spice, the smugglers and that sort of stuff.
I think in the second one, it, okay, that's actually making me remember some stuff from the second one. I guess they didn't explain it, but they kind of do in the second one a little bit.
Hmm. And it's
Mhm.
the movie overall. It I'll be honest with you. The first time I watched it, I did not see it in the theater. It's one of those ones. I remember one of the guys that worked for me a few years ago. He called me while I was on vacation in Florida. He's like, "Hey Tim, did you know they're making a Dune movie?" And I was at that point, I hadn't read the book. I hadn't, I still haven't seen the original movie. I was just like, what's so special about this, and then when I did watch the movie, I rented it from Redbox for what, $2 to watch on Blu-ray, and I felt, honestly, at that point in time, I felt underwhelmed by this movie. What do you think? It was do you think it deserved the praise
So,
from the get-go that it got?
well, I think because the director, Denis Villeneuve, is that how you say it?
It's
French.
I had to look it up several times. I believe it is Denis Villeneuve.
One of my favorite movies made by that director is Blade Runner 2049, and starring Ryan Gosling as the lead. Really, really great at cinematography, and ambiance and like creating emotion through images and all the music. So I like that part of Dune One when I first saw it. I thought it was a slow burn. 2049, I had more patience just because I knew the lore and I liked cyberpunk, futuristic, dystopian type movies. So I was patient with that one. Harrison Ford's in it too, so that was cool to see his return.
Yeah.
But back to Dune, yeah, I've seen Timothy, the Paul Atreides, the actor, in another movie on Netflix called The, and I thought he did a great job. So they had really strong cast. But yeah, I thought it was a little slow, and you just never got a climax. Like there's so much tension and setup in the first one that I wasn't like too intrigued. But I hung in there, and watching it the second time, I appreciated it more. So I don't know if it's just one of those types of films where you gotta watch it once or twice to kind of make sure you didn't miss anything, or just kind of get into it a little bit more. But yeah, so yeah, that's my opinion on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really in the same boat as you. I don't think it is definitely a slower movie. I've seen some movies that are like, that was a slog. That is 100% a slow burn. I don't know that it's quite there. It is multiple areas of slowness. And I feel like when you take Dune 1 and Dune 2 combined, the pacing, the reasoning behind the pacing is because there is going to be a payoff, or, the slowness of the scene. They are giving you even though they're limited, they can't give you, every detail from the book. They're doing their best to give you what they can to make this kind of a fluid production between part one and part two, right? Even though there was, what, 2 years in between them. Just like you, though, that first time I watched it, I was very underwhelmed. Like, literally, when I watched it the second time about a few weeks ago, or a week before we watched part two, I logged into IMDb just to kind of refresh my mind and look at the stuff. And it's one of the few movies that I had actually rated on there, and I actually gave it a 5 out of 10.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, and but
More.
I definitely liked it better on the second viewing. I feel like there are a lot of things in this movie, as there were in the book, that literally it's just words that are thrown at you, and you, starting off, you just don't have the slightest idea what the hell any of this stuff means. They're talking about the
Mhm.
Bene Gesserit, the Gom
Yeah.
Jabbar,
That's
the.
the thing, the lore was they didn't explain it like
Mhm,
they should have. Like, even in Star Wars, they tell you kinda what the Force is, or even if you don't really understand it, because even I think Lucas said he didn't really understand it, it's just kinda like a good, bad in the universe, kinda some type of magic key, whatever to it.
mhm,
Um Yeah, like, you just when they say it, they sound demonic. They're just like and it's telepathic in a way. You can correct me on because you actually read the book, so you know. But when you're first watching it, you're like, "What is this creepy witch, religion, council, whatever?" And they're like, "Sit down." It sounds
yeah.
creepy as hell, and you're just like, "What the hell is going on?" From the viewer's perspective. So, yeah, just a lot of things that weren't really, like, defined. So you're just, like, going with it, like, "Hey, nasal cannula breathers, I guess, and suits like recycle water. Like that's cool. So you appreciate the sci-fi stuff. I really like the helicopters, how they're like dragonflies.
Mhm,
Always like technology that's like inspired by nature, which is a lot of technology in the real world. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. Like the visuals, the music. If there's more action, I would have been down. But like he just like you said, there's gonna be that payoff. However, I don't think this is a spoiler. The director said he might not be back for a third. So I'm like, were they trying to do like another Star Wars or another MCU type of saga to compete? And like, here's another like franchise blockbuster moneymaker. I'm sure
mhm.
Hollywood wants that. The director himself is kind of not even sure he's coming back for the third, which is supposed to be well, I'm not sure if I can say.
Well, it's
Uh,
so there's six original books that Frank Herbert wrote, and Dune Part One and Part Two covers the first book. Um, which is something else that I feel like people should know going in is, I, having not read the book, when Dune was announced, it was not announced as a part one until like the day before it hit the theaters. Like, they didn't even know if they were going to have the funding to do a second movie, which covers the second half of the book. Each movie roughly covers half of the book. Um, and so it was kind of left up in the air to where they were like, is this going to be a payoff, or are we spending, millions of dollars on this movie that no one's going to watch? And thankfully people did watch it. Thankfully I gave it a second shot. Um,
yeah,
even with this movie, um, as far as like standout scenes in it, uh, or even characters that stand out. I really liked the Duke, Oscar Isaac. I felt like this dude,
uh,
when he is on screen, he commands your presence, right?
yeah,
Um,
he's a good.
even in the
Yeah.
scene to where they have him naked in a chair and they're about to kill him.
Oh, was that your favorite scene?
What's that?
Was that your favorite scene?
I don't know that that was my favorite scene. I would listen to your favorite scene, and I'm still a little up in the air. But I feel like, as far as the actors in this movie, even Oscar Isaac in general, I've seen several movies with this guy in it, and I feel like this dude has come a long way from where he started. I really felt his presence in this movie, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um,
he was a leader, a commander. It felt like that planet. Oh, how do you pronounce it? Caldron?
Caladran.
Caladron. Yeah, it's like Scotland basically, and yeah, they did such a good job just kind of building him up to being someone that you could see why the emperor would be jealous because he commands a room. Army respects him. Everyone respects him.
Hmm.
So, wife and kids respect him. It's like ideal.
Yep.
So for sure, for sure.
So you brought it up. Tell me about your favorite scene, Jake.
No, my favorite scene, of Dune 1. I mean, I like the worms, man. Like, when you first see them, they're so massive and kinda, like, have this, like awe and curiosity, kind of like a kid. So seeing that, I love like movie monsters, Godzilla, that kind of thing. So whenever the worms were on the scene, I thought that was pretty cool. And then obviously Momoa, the little action that it had, I thought that the cinematography was great, or the
Hmm.
choreography of the fight scenes. It just like took forever. And the Harkonnens, like we didn't really explain, but like they're such bad guys. Like you wouldn't have to guess. There's no like moral grayness. It's like good guy, bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Harkonnens are like skinheads. Like everything is like black and white on their planet. It's like doom and gloom. It's raining. They got sacrificial people in the background when they're playing like the creepy but very cool Hans Zimmer what is it, Mongolian throat singing. It's like the baddies. It's not there's no confusion. So
Hmm.
whenever there was the little combat that they had, I don't know if I had like one scene, but yeah, definitely the Dune when they're just like not Dune, sorry, the worm when they're just staring at it. We didn't even talk about the worms, did we?
No, no, it's yeah, I
Jeez.
guess the worms did not get much time in our video yet. Um,
We'll talk about the Dune bucket. No, I'm just kidding.
so the worms in Dune, if you haven't seen the movie yet, they are extremely large. Like there is a building sized machine that collects the spice from the sand, right? And at one point, a sandworm completely engulfs this thing that is like the equivalent of a two-story building that takes up a city block. And so, I mean, the sandworms are flipping huge. Um, I don't feel that they again this movie and even talking about our favorite scenes, I'm struggling to find a favorite scene of my own, but I don't feel like the worms got the screen time and what they deserved. I feel like they deserved a little bit more, but I get it because it's a movie. It's like 2.5 hours at least. I can't remember the actual
Mhm.
runtime. Um,
2 hours and 35 minutes. Like that feels like 3 hours once you're getting over two, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Oh yeah. So, my favorite scene, man, the one that I think I enjoyed the most was at the very end of the movie where they are running from the Harkonnens men. They get trapped in a sandstorm. Paul and his mother do, and then
Oh,
they actually meet up with the Fremen. And the Fremen people, very low screen time in this movie. And for example, Zendaya, I think she's in the movie for all of 5 minutes, right? We already just said we're going to talk spoilers. So she was only in the movie for, between 5 and like 8 minutes, and maybe
yeah.
said, three lines of dialogue, I think.
It was flashback or not flashback, sorry, but it was more like from, Paul, his perspective with the hallucinogens, he kept seeing images of her, and it
Yes.
was just her intensely staring and stuff, and it was always in a positive light, which is a contrast to the next one,
Oh,
which
yeah. They
yeah.
were premonitions, so to speak. But there's a final scene to where Paul and his mother they get in a little scuffle with a couple of the Fremen. Paul's mother defeats or is able to get her knife around the throat of Javier Bardem, and
Mhm.
which is a character named Stilgar, and so she releases him, in order for them to be transported to a safe place. And one of the guys is like, you know what? No, f that. She bested you, Stilgar. You can't lead us anymore. She gets to lead, and he basically challenges her to combat. And because she's pregnant, Paul steps up and says, "No, my mom can't fight you in hand to hand combat. It's a fight to the death. It's I'll do it in her place." And they have a battle at the end of the movie. I feel for me it's a long watch to get to that point at the end of the movie to where I consider it to be the best scene. It is the scene where I feel like a transition happens
Oh,
and it's right at the very
oh,
end.
so are you saying when Paul was fighting, Jamis?
Yes.
That okay, 'cause I think you said Stilgar, just a correction, Stilgar was not
Right,
the
right.
one.
Paul's mom bested Stilgar, and remember Paul ran up into the cliffs and had the gun, and then that's when Jamis was like, "Hey," Stilgar was like, "Okay, we'll transport them
Oh,
to safely," and they
you're
were
right,
like,
sorry.
"No worries, no worries."
Yes, yeah,
So, but
yeah.
overall, who do you think? I already said I feel like Oscar Isaac kind of stole the show with this movie? Who do you think did the best job in this movie, and who do you think kind of did the worst job?
Yeah, I mean I really think that Timothy, um, Chalamet?
Chalamet.
Chalamet? I am butchering everyone's name.
It's I think is it French? The French kid.
He might be. He looks French.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's just seeing him in The King and then being in this movie, like he's a very good actor. I thought he did a great job. He played a little bit, like you said, coming to age, kind of moody teen, but he's like trying to figure out his identity. And see, he's the future of House Atreides after, of course, the demise of the Duke, which we hadn't really talked about, but his father dies. That's in this movie due to the Emperor's plan with the Harkonnens. So he's a demise. So he's trying to do that as well as he has this fascination with the desert people. Um, I just thought every scene he was in was very intense, and you kind of just saw everything from his perspective. Other than that, though, I think most people thought Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Jessica, had the best acting, in both this one and in the second. I don't think so, in my personal opinion. I would say the worst, but worst. It's gonna be a hard one to pick. I mean,
I've got mine picked
Brolin,
already.
really, really. Well, let me see. Let me try to. Bautista, I thought did good. I mean, Momoa is Momoa. Like he just kind of turning into the Rock, whatever he's in is kind of like, yeah, that's Momoa.
You see, I
And
feel
then
like Jason Momoa was the worst one. I
I
just
also so I can see. So I kind of all right,
I can't
yeah,
take the dude seriously in any movie. I've never
he's too
watched
nice.
the
Yeah.
Aquamans, even from Game of Thrones. That first season, I felt like he was kind of he had a little bit of goofiness,
Really?
so to speak. Yeah,
So
I just
before his personality kind of came into like the public and he got
mhm.
bigger, then now I see him in every role. Like whenever he's not that, he played such a serious, like non-talking. Shoot, I forgot what they were called, but hard people and
Dothraki.
Yes, and Game of Thrones. So it was weird seeing him, just kind of it seems like he's just playing himself. Like whatever The
Mhm.
Rock's doing, he's like, that's The Rock. So yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
I kind of feel like yeah, that would probably be it because I can't think of anyone else that I'm looking at in the cast here that did. I mean, Brolin was he's a pretty good actor. I mean, he played the hard-headed like military uncle guy. So yeah, I
So
guess But I liked his scenes. Like I said, that
mhm.
was one of my favorite scenes. Like the cinematography, I thought was good with
Yeah.
him.
My biggest problem with Brolin in this movie is number one, he's a phenomenal actor, right? And I don't feel that he got enough screen time in this movie. Like,
Did he deserve
definitely,
it based on the book?
in the book he had a little bit more.
Mm,
Um, but I would have liked to see him more. He has that voice that has that gravitas that you just what he's saying. You pay attention to that scene. You know him and
yeah,
Oscar Isaac in the same scenes together. It's like okay, who am I focused on more? Because I've got two great actors here, just kicking ass and feeding off each other. I wish he had a little bit more screen time. Is all. That's just me though.
okay, so we got Oscar for you for the best performance, and then, Jason Momoa for the performance, and then Josh, you felt like could have been in this movie more.
Hmm.
I would say, like I've already said, Paul Atreides, Timothy, I thought he was the best, and I agree with you, Jason Momoa didn't do the best performance, and Zendaya wasn't in it, so
Yeah,
not really,
5 minutes.
maybe he
Sorry,
got the award.
Zendaya.
Did you
I think they fixed that further on. But rating the movie out of 100, 1 to 100, I'm gonna go with, like I said, the first time I watched it on IMDb, I gave it a 5 out of 10, which is 50. And after the
Mhm,
second viewing, I've increased it just because I feel like understanding the things they're talking about a little bit better. Uh, ultimately, though, you to understand everything they're saying and talking about in this movie, I kind of feel like you need to read the book or you need to watch something or read something online about it to understand what these words that they're saying mean. I feel like that draws it back a little bit. I'm
mhm.
going to give it a 77. I don't feel that I can put it in the 80s range. It,
Yeah, I
you
almost
know,
said the same thing, but, yeah, I'm in the high 70s as well. First viewing, I would say probably a 70, after rewatching, 76, 77.
All right. Well, there
So,
you have
I
it.
have to agree with you, but literally, I mean, it's for sure a C. I was just trying to figure out, I don't think it was low because, like,
Mhm.
I watched it twice. I don't really watch movies that are that crappy
Yeah.
twice, you
And I'll
know?
be honest with you. Now that I have read the first book, I actually feel like I appreciate it even more, but I've not seen it a third time. So,
Yeah.
when we started this channel, when I watch a movie, I immediately try to give it a rating from that point right there.
Mhm.
And at that point, I hadn't finished the book. So 77 is where I stand on this one. I feel like another. I'm planning on when they release the second one on to video. There's going to be a box set, and I'm just going to buy the box set for it. I feel like the more you know about it, the more you like it. I don't know. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just enjoying, uh, reading the books too. Like, sometimes, obviously, most people say this because you don't wanna watch movies that, like, especially if they did everything that was in the book in the movie, it might not translate very well, and, like, I'm already tapping out at 2.5 hours. This could have been a 6-hour, maybe a whole day movie if they did everything in the book,
Hmm.
and that's, they say the books are better anyways, so I think your appreciation for more of the book, it makes you more excited because there's a lot of times where people will be like, I still like the movie just because I like the book so much. Where, if you're coming into it not reading the book, um, you're just kind of like, it is what it is. And so it's more of a, I don't want to say unbiased, but kind of from a fresh perspective.
Hmm.
When you're just watching it, like I had no idea what the heck's going on. But like since you've read the books, now you do. So like that can also make it bad because you're like, oh, they didn't say this, they didn't say that, but maybe they did something really well that you liked about it. And I've heard that this was a really hard book to adapt to film.
They
Um,
most people called it unfilmable, even though they filmed it in 1984.
yeah,
Um, obviously
and
with
I
this.
this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to say with improved technology for like CG and stuff. I mean, I don't think that anything is truly unfilmable anymore. But they quoted it as being unfilmable for years.
Unless, yeah, well, maybe there's a lot of if there's weird abstractions or something I could see, but I don't know. It seems like it's just sci-fi. Or is there any weird concept that they couldn't really, like you said, the fully human test that they did with the box and the whatever that was.
Hmm.
Uh, is there concepts that are hard to adapt, more that aren't like so visual that make?
No, it reading in the book. I think it's literally the first chapter, and it pretty much is in the movie just like it is in the book. There's a little bit more dialogue that the Reverend Mother says and talks to Paul about, but I mean there's nothing that indicates they would need more visual, interpretation or anything like that. So
All right, well, okay, we
pretty good, faithful. The best they could do. I don't feel like they changed the story too much at any point. But it's the closest adaptation I think they could do with what they had in mind. So definitely, I would recommend to anyone that's a science fiction fan, check this movie out if you haven't
yeah,
already. Um,
100%.
if you're a reader, I know not everyone reads books, but it's a decent book too. The first half was a little bit of a slow burn for me, and it really took off in the second half, but it was pretty good either way.
Yeah, yeah, we will recommend this movie
Hmm.
despite, some of the criticisms. This may be our lowest score for a movie
It
at
is
this
so
point.
far, yeah, our lowest scores, even though it's a recommended movie.
I know
So,
what to say,
but
but
either way, I
what
mean that's why we
mhm,
sit down and we talk about this.
yeah, yeah, but we're not, blowhards, we'll give it to you. You're hardworking people, wanna watch a good movie, we wanna let you know what it really is like, so.
Oh yes, and so get ready though because we're also back to back with this going to be filming our Dune 2 review. We'll probably be coming out a day or so after this one releases, or maybe the same day, depending on how fast I can edit. Either way, we appreciate everyone watching. Again, this is Tim and Jake from Meta Cinema, and we'll see you when we talk about the next thing.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.